All right, so for me, this was it was a attempt to summarize the things that I felt had been most useful to me up until that point in my life. So obviously, like I said, I first started getting high when I was 9 years old, and I was already in quite a bit of trouble early on. So I had to dig myself out of all that stuff. And I think that the 1 Hour Guide to Successful Thinking was really just my way of summarizing the tools that were useful to me, that were not useful. They were invaluable. They were necessary. These are the things that helped me dig my way out of all that stuff. So yeah, again, anybody who can, I'll tell you something, what actually inspired me to do that, just like Dishonest Money, reading Ed Griffin's The Creature from Jekyll Island, I was just like, oh my God, this information is so powerful, it's so important, more people need to read this. I kind of felt the same way about Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field. So anybody who's interested in a more in-depth account of this stuff that I cover in the 1 Hour Guide to Successful Thinking, I would recommend Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field, because it's fantastic. That pretty much was really it gave me the idea of, you know what, this is useful. Putting these kind of things down on tape and making it easily accessible to people is really useful. And of course, as usual, it was I think Lead the Field is 6 CDs. Mine is 1. The Creature from Jekyll Island is 600 pages, which unfortunately I was unable to get a lot of people to read it. So I wrote something that covers what I feel is the most important elements of the story in less, so we can get the information to more people, and then hopefully they will go on and then go through the more expanded information that's available.
So let's go forward now, and if we go to 2008, you wrote Dishonest Money. I've read 3 of your books. This is the last one that I read. I was a little bit hesitant to read it because I consider myself somewhat of an expert on money, because I've read a lot about it, and I've been involved in that professionally quite a bit. And so I was pleasantly surprised that I actually learned quite a bit in your book. And I think it's critical for most people to get a hold of this book and understand what's in there. And again, I could be off base here, but I see it as another way that you're contributing to the general conversation, of the working person and other people that just don't have time, by providing these great insights in these. This is a 175-page book, so I see it as coming out of The Creature from Jekyll Island. A lot of it is referenced in there, which is a huge book. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about Dishonest Money or not, and how much was distilled from G. Edward Griffin, and then how much is yours, or what other sources did you grab onto to produce this?
Well, there are a lot of sources, but what I always try to do is I try to pick the one that I feel is the best single source. In case you haven't figured it out by now, I'm really into editing and condensing things down to the most important elements, because I just think that's what we should do. People don't have a lot of time, and nothing should be more complicated than it needs to be. And unfortunately, it's very easy to make things difficult, and it's very difficult to make things easy. So
right.
I do the best I can to make things as easy as possible. So for me, I'd read all sorts of books on economics, but as far as I was concerned, if I was going to direct anybody to one specific book, so for instance, Money, Bank, Credit, and Economic Cycles by Jesus Huerta de Soto is an excellent book, surprisingly excellent, considering it really is a textbook. And I believe it was originally written in German, and it's 800 pages.
Of course.
Yeah, but it's really I found it quite good, but I also know that most people won't. So, it's like not everybody is interested in digging into these things at that level, or they might not be comfortable with the academic tone, the presentation. All of these other things I think really affect people in a negative way, the average person. And it's not to be derogatory, it's just a matter of tastes. And it isn't that they couldn't make themselves if they wanted to, it's just that they don't see any reason to make themselves because they don't want to. So
Right.
With Dishonest Money, which was it's interesting, that's the last book you read. It was the first book that I wrote. It covers our monetary system, and as far as I was concerned, I wanted to direct people towards The Creature from Jekyll Island, because that was my goal originally. I was buying copies of The Creature from Jekyll Island and giving it to people, and I couldn't get them to read it. I think because they were intimidated by it. They're intimidated by the topic because it's new to them, and people have a tendency to be leery of things that they don't understand. For whatever reason, it makes them anxious to go into things that they're not familiar with. And then on top of that, it's a 600-page book, which is just that much more intimidating. So I eventually decided, well, maybe if we do this stepping stone to this, because this is imperative that people understand the power, this exclusive right that the bankers have given themselves to simply create money out of thin air. It is imperative for people to understand that power. How about we bust it down and make it, and take, there are other sources, but we're going to break it down into its simplest parts, and then if people want more information, let's send them to just this one book. If you're just going to read one book on this topic that is really very thoroughly done, let's send them to The Creature from Jekyll Island, because I think that's just about as good as you're going to get.
Right. And, along that line of thought is, can you imagine, I've thought about this after reading Dishonest Money, can you imagine how much better the world would be, or America would be, if this book were taught in all of our public school systems and universities? If people knew what was in this book, I just think we'd be a lot better off in terms of politics, geopolitics, economics, and in every way.
Of course, because the government wouldn't be anything near what it is, because the mechanism for creating what the government is today wouldn't exist.
To me, instead of getting this book, which is, contains truth, we're getting falsehood. And that's part of their control over, the general population, is to produce a false narrative and having everybody believe in it. And so you have the groupthink. Whereas if you don't believe, the official line of thought, then you wear a tinfoil hat or whatever.
Whatever pejorative they can come up with.
So that's Dishonest Money. Let's go to the next book. And again, I was a little reluctant about reading this one. The first book I read of yours was Tragedy and Hope 101, which really, made me a fan of yours quite a bit. And so this was my second book I read of yours. And again, I typically do not read novels. I read Sybil Edmonds' Lone Gladio, which is a novel. But I'm not really into fiction. I'd rather get something I can use today that will benefit me in terms of knowledge and understanding. So I'm kind of a nerd that way. So to me, reading a fiction is a little bit waste of time. But I must admit, after reading this, and I've told you this, before, that I can't quit thinking about this book, because it brings up so many deep-seated assumptions. And the debate that goes on between the two major characters in this book is absolutely brilliant in my mind. And I know you must have spent a lot of time thinking about this debate, but you've done a great job proving up, the other side of the story in terms of the elite. What makes them powerful, what makes their position so logical and so realistic. And so you've done a great job proving up the side, in my mind, for the elite and how they control the money and the people of the world. So I wasn't so convinced about the other side. So I don't know if you have any comments on this, but I saw, Howard as being the proponent for the elite, and then Alex was the proponent for individual freedom and justice and rights. And so in your mind, who actually won the debate? Because I thought you did a really good job for Howard.